Well, I think it's time to get started. Welcome everyone to this information session about the MS-HCI program at Georgia Tech. We are super excited you guys are here. Turnout looks like. My name is Dick Henneman, and I am the director of the MS-HCI program. And I've just to give a little background, I've been at Georgia Tech as a professor of the practice for 11 years now. And before that, I worked in a number of different UX, HCI related management jobs at different companies. Um, and I want to then now turn it over to each of our co-presenters who will introduce themselves. Carrie, why don't we start with you?
Hi, I am Dr. Carrie Bruce, and I've been here at Georgia Tech for almost 24 years now, and with the MS-HCI program for going on 10, 11 years. And my passion, specialty space is accessibility, and I play a role in all of our students' life here in that I teach one of the core courses and I play a giant role in the capstone projects. So I'm very happy to get to be here for this session and hopefully answer some of the questions that you have.
Hey, okay, let's see. Emily Zhao is a second year MSHCI student in the ID track. So, Emily.
Hey everyone. Like Dr. Henneman mentioned, I'm Emily. I'm a second year on the ID track. In undergrad, I also studied industrial design also at GT. So by the end of this, I will be a double jacket. I'm originally from the Atlanta area, so I'm pretty familiar with the metro Atlanta area. So if y'all have questions about things to do in the city, how I've been liking the city, even after being here my whole life. Happy to answer questions about those.
Great. And Drew, a first year student.
Hey y'all, my name is Drew. Thanks so much for being here today. I am originally from Pennsylvania. I graduated undergrad with a degree in marketing, and then I came down to Georgia first to University of Georgia to study nonprofit management in a master's program over there, and wanted to take my technical and educational skills and bring them to the HCI program. So happy to chat about coming to Georgia from an out of state perspective, as well as getting settled into Atlanta.
Okay, thanks, y'all. And y'all doesn't come naturally to me, but since I've lived in the South for so long, I've gotten used to saying that. And maybe after you guys are, if you enroll in the program, you'll start using Southern language like that as well. Our format today is going to be pretty relaxed. I invite you, if you have questions that come up, to post them in the chat area. We may not answer those like as they come in, but we will look at them at the end. And if there's something that has come up that we haven't talked about, we'll make sure we address that at the end. We're going to take turns kind of asking each other questions. We'll do some hot takes on things. We'll do some quick little tours around that Emily and Drew will show us around. So hopefully you'll end up this session with a pretty good idea of what you would be getting into if you joined us in the MSHCI program at Georgia Tech and kind of what the program entails. We're really proud of what we've done here. And I hope we can kind of share that enthusiasm for the program in our discussion this afternoon. I want to take a few minutes to start out and just tell you a little bit background information about the program, just to get this out of the way. We'll be drilling down into these different areas in the course of the next hour and a half or so. We're hoping, in particular, to give you insight into the curriculum, like what classes you would take. We want to talk about research, which is an important element of what goes on in the MSHCI program. We want to give you a feel for the community. Like we think that's something that's really important in our program is the idea of community and how we support each other, and how we form friendships in the program. And so we'll certainly be talking about that. And then we'll also be talking about the admissions process and kind of what you need to do to apply, what the timeline is for doing applications. And why don't I start out with a little bit about that? And that is, hopefully, if you're on this uh, Zoom call, you're aware that our admission cycle kicks off when you submit an application, which is due by the beginning of February, February 1st. I think that might fall on a weekend, so it might be the Monday after that this year. Um, and those applications are for enrollment then in the following fall semester. So you apply by February 1st. Classes start in 2026 on the 24th of August. What happens from when you first apply is we review applications. We have uh, as you know, probably know, the program consists of 4 different schools working together on the Georgia Tech campus. Georgia Tech uses the term schools instead of departments that you might know from your undergraduate college. Each school reviews applications that have been submitted to that school. So, like if you were applying through the College of Computing or through School of Interactive Computing, there would be faculty in interactive computing who would be reviewing your application. And we try to make decisions then from the large pool of applicants to students we are going to offer admission to who have been admitted. It's usually around the end of February, beginning of March. Um, we then host a admitted student event online where you can get a lot more detailed information about the program the end of March. We look for your decision, for you to let us know whether or not you'll be enrolling by April 15th. And then we start the process, if you're an international student, getting the visa, kind of all those kind of paperwork things that need to be submitted. Um, and that's really what happens until you begin enrollment the week before classes start. We have a orientation on the Wednesday before classes start, which this year is on the 22nd or the 19th of August, and things go on from there. We'll be talking more about those beginning activities. So that's kind of the key dates, the timeline for admissions. A little bit more about what the program is all about. So we're all about um, teaching students to become professionals in the area of human-computer interaction or user experience. And we do that through a 4-semester, almost 2-year program where you start in August of 1 year, take 2 semesters of classes, do an internship in the summer between the semesters 2 and 3, come back and complete your program in semesters 3 and 4. In the last 2 semesters, you do a research project that can either be done by yourself or as part of a team of 2 or 3 people. Some of those projects are being done with industry partners. Some of those you're working in labs on campus with faculty members. And there's a lot of you'll hear this probably repeatedly this afternoon in this call, but there's quite a bit of flexibility in the program. So the course that you want to take in your research project, you have a lot of control over what it is that you're going to be doing. You also have a lot of control over the courses that you take. We only have 3 required courses that you take in your first semester. One of them is focused on UX design. It's called Design Foundations. One of them is focused on user research. It's called User Research Methods that Carrie Bruce teaches. We also have a 1-credit course called Professional Preparation and Practice. Everyone abbreviates that as PPP. So if you hear that, that's what people are talking about. That's a course that I teach that really has 2 goals. One is to help prepare you for finding a job and a career in industry. So we do things like this week we have a panel of industry managers in UX who are coming in to talk to students. We also spend time doing portfolio reviews and working on resumes. Last week we had a big mock interview event where we had 40 mostly alums of the program work online with students in one-on-one 40-minute sessions to give them feedback on their approaches to interviewing and feedback on resumes and portfolios and such things. As I mentioned, the kind of the culmination of your experience in MS-HCI is this capstone project that spans 2 semesters. Right now, our first year students are taking their core courses, starting to gather information to figure out what they want to do in their master's project. In the spring semester, the first year students will be exploring different alternatives for their capstone project, ready to kick that off in August of their second year of semester 3. Those are kind of the main things I wanted to hit on to kick things off. Carrie, any big topics I missed here in giving an overview that you can pick up?
No, I would just say advice as you're considering this, and probably other programs, is to carefully listen to how these things that we offer align with what you're interested in. I'm seeing some questions come up in the chat where people are asking about very specific areas like project management, instructional design. And so be listening, and regardless of whether you see our program as a fit, or other programs, like you should be imagining how a program like ours actually fits with where your needs are. And so hopefully we can give you that information today. And if not, you can certainly reach back out to us or any of our students and try to get the details that you need for making really hard decisions.
Okay, and with that, I am going to kick off the question and answer period. I'm going to ask Carrie if she could talk a little bit more about the 4 different tracks. This is a question we often hear from students is, I don't know what track to apply to, and we have 4 of them. So Carrie, could you explain what these 4 tracks are, how they differ from each other, and why you might pick one over the other?
Yeah. So we have these 4 tracks. They're also called specializations. And from the application process on, you decide which of these tracks or specializations you're going to enter through. And this largely comes out of this notion that HCI and even UX are interdisciplinary in nature. And so we push that through in our program, but like really that's the reality of practice, is that HCI is a blend of various perspectives and expertise, and we want the program to reflect that. So the 4 tracks or specializations that we have are interactive computing, industrial design, literature, media, and communication, which we also call digital media, and then psychology. And so when students are trying to figure out, prospective students trying to decide which one should I apply to, I would say first that your background is a really good place to start thinking of where's my undergrad degree from, where has my minor maybe suggested an additional interest of mine. It could be a secondary interest or a passion. And so that background has a lot to do, I think, with at least showcasing where your foundation knowledge and kind of philosophy perspective might be. And as you then apply through a track, you will have to showcase that background. And so for our digital media and LMC, or the industrial design tracks, you will have to show your design skills. So there's a portfolio component to the application. And for your interactive computing, you could submit a portfolio, but for psychology, there's no portfolio. And so as you look at the application, you should be aligning the background plus the requirements of the application to decide which one to go for. And then I would say once you've been admitted, the way in which the specializations or these tracks are designed are to support that prior knowledge and skills. And so you're bringing forth that, you're building upon it. And then I think we have a little bit of a misconception in that people feel like tracks might determine specific job roles that you would be prepared for or your career path. And that's not really the case with the way that we've design the tracks in the curriculum. As you'll see in some of the resources, when you look across the curriculum, there's really only 2 to 3 specialization courses that you have to take to be set up in that track. And otherwise, the curriculum is pretty flexible. So even if you came in through something like the LMC digital media track and you have done lots of work with interactive online digital representations, but you want to get more psychology background. Our curriculum enables students to flex in that way. You're expected to get a little bit of breadth and a little bit of depth, as Dr. Henneman mentioned. And so there's, although we have this structure of these specializations and tracks, there's not really a way that it sets you up for something very particular or specific in terms of your career path. We do have students who will apply to multiple tracks as a strategy. I think that's a possibility for some students. However, again, you have to be able to showcase that you've got that background and that skill set to fit in that track. And really, you're only going to be accepted into one of those tracks.
Let's see, someone asked a question about relative size of the different tracks. Yeah, so usually what happens is we'll admit, we'll have about 60 students enroll. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. And usually about half of those are interactive computing students. And then the rest of the students are pretty much split among the 3 other tracks. And it'll shift from year to year. So there isn't like any real science behind how many we're admitting to each one track or the other. It's just kind of how it works out. Okay.
Okay.
Let's see. Someone asked a question about what's the difference between the MS-HCI degree, and Georgia Tech has a MS degree in computer science with an HCI specialization. I say the key difference is the MS-HCI degree, the degree we're talking about today, is an interdisciplinary degree. And so you're taking courses not just in your school, but you're also taking courses outside. So it recognizes the idea that HCI is a very multidisciplinary kind of career path. And so there's great value in having both breadth in an area and also depth in an area. The MS-CS degree with a specialization in HCI at Georgia Tech, and I know this is confusing, that degree, it's computer science courses, and there's great computer science courses in HCI, but it's a different emphasis. So I think the main difference is MS-HCI is multidisciplinary, MS-CS HCI specialization is not. I think another key difference is, and this is what we hear from students in both programs, MS-HCI puts this real emphasis on the idea of community in the cohort and developing teamwork and relationships among the people in the program. I'm not saying that doesn't exist in MS-CS with an HCI specialization, but I also understand there's not as many opportunities to build those connections. Okay, moving on.
So I have a question for Emily. All right, so Emily, there's a lot that happens in our program, especially during the first semester. And I want to know from you, from a student's perspective, what's a realistic course load in the semesters? And also, how do you recommend students manage their time and that workload for courses?
Mm-hmm. Wow. Starting off with a kind of sort of tough one. So for me personally, what I did was all of the core classes that Dr. Bruce and Dr. Henneman will walk y'all through during orientation day and stuff. So those were the 2 research and design foundations classes, in addition to PPP, the GVU, because you might need to fill out your 12 credits, and there's this seminar kind of class. Basically, it's a guest lecture kind of thing, and it takes up 1 credit. I did that, and then I did an additional elective on top of that. I would highly recommend just like better understanding your that third class, your elective class really well before maybe committing to it. And I'm only saying that because like I had just kind of heard that that class was good and I was like, okay, like this seems manageable. But I think that having 3 project-based classes at some points became a lot. And thankfully, my teammate, she was actually a second year in the HCI program. Shout out to Ariana. So when things got really, really busy for me, she was like, I've been there, like I totally understand. Like I can fill in, and like once you have a lighter week, you can kind of help fill in some more. I was like, thank you so much. So I think that worked out really well for me in that regard. But at some points, I think having to tackle 3 projects at a time was a little bit of a challenge. So I would recommend kind of maybe either talking to some existing students about what electives they might recommend, as well as during that add or drop week, maybe talking to the professor and understanding what the workload and the requirements are for that class. I think I could have been a little bit more intentional with that before just being like, oh yeah, like I'll just commit to the service design class, which has a huge semester-long project with user research and designing and ideating and workshopping. And I was like, oh man, this is tough. Um, in terms of balancing that with other things, I do think that there's some weeks that are definitely better than others. And I think that with like things going on. I remember both Dr. Dombrowski and Dr. Bruce were really like just awesome and generous with being understanding. Like I know there was like a couple of times where we had some extensions happening. So I think that the program is definitely built in a way to um, not only facilitate, your learning, your acquiring of all the HCI skills, but also developing those connections and really being intentional about setting aside time for us to be able to connect not only as like students and peers, but also just like friends and family, like in our big HCI family. So yeah.
Yeah, I totally respect that perspective of like you enter a brand new program and you're hungry for knowledge, and you sometimes everything looks interesting and it's very hard to turn stuff down, new classes, new labs. We encourage our students to do all of those things, but to do it in moderation. Like protection of your own personal time is part of that balancing of workload. And our program happens over 2 years for a reason. It's to give you some of that space and time to protect your mental health, but also you're going to be applying for jobs. You're going to be experiencing new city, new life. And if you're so over invested in courses and having too much going on in the academic space, you don't necessarily get a chance to do quality to those other areas of looking for jobs, career preparation, but also yourself. So
Gary, one of the things our program does is we try to have this balance between kind of the theory that you would, academic theories that you would learn, expect to learn in a graduate program, and hands-on practical knowledge. Could you give some examples of kind of how that works in practice about different research projects we've had that illustrate that?
yeah, so a primary objective of our program, as we've mentioned, has been providing students with relevant and industry-ready preparation. We're professionally oriented, so what that means to me is that we expose you to a lot of industry and professional skills and knowledge ongoing, right? Because that's always changing. And of course, we have world-class faculty here who are involved in the program, and they're doing a lot of really great research that will produce and challenge theoretical knowledge. So there's a good balance here of the practical and the theory. But we work really hard in our program, along with alum and lots of external connections, friends of the program, to bring those practical applications into the classroom. We have required projects in our two main core courses, and a lot of our students are also going to work with external partners on their capstone, which comes in the second year as a 2-semester kind of comprehensive project, so to speak. And just to give you an example of the types of companies that we work with and the projects for this semester in our research methods class. So this would be the class that all incoming students must take their first semester, and with me, because I teach that class right now. We are working with Verizon Connect, the Georgia Aquarium, Salesforce, ADP, Arrive, which is a parking company, Cox Enterprises, Slalom, which is a design consultancy here in Atlanta, Atlanta Fire Rescue, Swallow Care, Pursuant Health, Phillips Healthcare. So we have 15 projects going on, and these projects are all focusing on how to conduct research that informs the design of digital interactions. And so fleet drivers and accident reporting is going on with our Verizon teams. We've got exhibit design and aquarium navigation design at the Georgia Aquarium, parking apps, AI and retail behavior, enhanced data analytics for arson investigation tracking. So there's a lot going on, a lot of variety in types of projects that students are going to work on. But I would say all of the efforts that we put forth in kind of curating these projects along with our industry contacts are specifically to get you to work on hands-on practical applications of HCI and UX. So a lot really does go on with our connections to focus on that practical side.
Yes, so it's our first round of rapid fire questions. So Emily, you have the first rapid fire question here, which is what is a daily app that you use for school or work management?
Hmm. I used to use my phone calendar a lot, but now I've kind of moved over to Outlook. Yeah, I never really used calendars in undergrad, which sounds a little bit silly. I feel like I was just like doing like planner type stuff, but now I'm like, I feel like I'm like a calendar master. Like I'll send people like calendar invites, and I'm like, oh my gosh, who am I?
Yeah, I mean, especially in your first semester, the parallel group projects necessitate a need for a calendar, and some way of managing that. So that's
For
definitely
sure.
very valid. Okay, Dr. Bruce, this next question is for you, and it's what is your AI of choice and why?
Okay, so I try not to use it too much, but I also realize that AI is just a part of where we're at. And I would say right now it's Gemini. And Gemini, because I'm completely embedded in the Google ecosystem for email, calendar, etc., outside of work. And I think Gemini for me has also done a really good job of like lifting the hood and being able to show me why it's providing some of these resources. And I can dabble in coding even though I'm not a coder.
Thank you. And Dr. Henneman, last question goes to you. What is your favorite place to find nature on campus?
It's hard to pick just one place because the campus is Georgia Tech campus for being in an urban setting in the middle of the city of Atlanta. It's actually a really beautiful campus. There's many places to experience nature, but I think one of the most unique places is there's a newish building called the Clough Commons. And Clough was a former president of Georgia Tech. And if you go to the top of that building, there's a garden and trees and things, which is kind of interesting. So I think that's a unique place. But just walking around campus, it's really a pretty campus, I would say. Near campus, Piedmont Park is a huge urban park environment, a lot going on there, concerts, fairs, lots of sports activities. It's a really nice place to go. Personally, I'm on the board at a group called the Olmsted Linear Park Association, which is some parks in Atlanta that were designed by landscape architect Frederick Law Olmsted. It's maybe a couple miles from campus, but it's also really beautiful.
Yes. Question for Dr. Henneman. Can you share some examples of where students have found internships and jobs? And when do students typically look for them? And how does that kind of fit into the larger program timeline overall?
Yeah, it's kind of this moving target about when to apply. Like when I first started in this job, it was more like second semester is when more of the searching took place. What we're seeing is it's moving earlier and earlier. So a lot of companies now are posting internships for in the summer. Our second year students who are looking for permanent jobs, it's more closer to graduation. So we always track like when students get offers for internships and jobs. And internships, kind of between now and actually until internship season starts in May. For full-time jobs, it'll start next semester really is when it takes off. With I think the biggest number of when people find jobs is like March, April, something like that. Where people are finding internships and jobs is all over the place. So the big companies like the Googles and the Amazons and companies like that are hiring our students. Historically, have hired our students. I think we're seeing a bit of a shift now where they're not hiring as much, although we've seen internships open up this year at some of the big companies. But there's been also a shift to where companies like Sam's Club or Walmart or other retailers are hiring companies or design firms. Um, there's kind of I think there's been a shift from only the big software companies um, hiring HCI people, kind of understanding what the importance of HCI is and understanding there's roles for those people. For our graduates, there's been a shift to a lot of other kinds of companies, from retailers to healthcare to startups. It's really a mixed bag. If you go to our website, I'm going to share in the chat, or maybe one of you can do this. A link to the companies our students interned at last summer. And if you go on our website, you can also find lists of other companies for other cohorts where students have interned or found permanent jobs. I think we're in an interesting place in the market right now for our graduates and our interns with some amount of uncertainty. Um, but I still think that and I think there's the market is also trying to understand the role of AI in UX design and research, and so we're seeing some shifts, kind of where the hiring is taking place and the roles that our students are playing. Um, with that, let's talk a little bit more about jobs and funding. And the question I have for Carrie is what kind of resources are available for career preparation and networking?
Yes. So, as I mentioned in the question about projects, that's one of our primary ways of trying to make this connection to solid career preparation, right? The act of practicing methods, learning about different ways of doing HCI and UX that are relevant to industry roles. And so I would say that's the primary way, but we have lots of other ways, given that, again, our mission is this practical knowledge and skill development. Starting with the professional prep and practices course, which Dr. Henneman teaches, we have activities in that class that focus on interview preparation. So there's a big mock interview day where students get matched up with companies who are volunteering to come in and kind of review what you have for a portfolio or kind of talk through how you would represent yourself in your work and give you feedback on that. We have other resume and portfolio building and review sessions where students get together and help each other out. There's also a really fun public speaking practice where we invite a local improv group to come in and get students kind of relaxed and in the mood for practicing just being up and talking in front of groups of people. So I would say PPP is one of the major ways beyond our projects where we really do focus in on specific career prep and networking modalities. The other way we do this is we have an extensive alumni network, and this alumni network gets involved in so many ways, from advising projects, giving guest lectures, being on panels. We'll have some who make visits to campus and are willing to kind of sit here in the lounge and talk to students. They will send us job internship postings, and they're willing to talk to students about openings. And otherwise just being generally willing to give advice to our students as they move through the program. I would also say a final resource we have is our current students. We've already mentioned this idea of community and how it's important to our program, but I would say so many of our students are willing to help each other. And so that means they'll give feedback on resumes, portfolios, projects, design challenges that people are having to go through as part of hiring, sharing insights about interview processes at certain companies, helping make connections. And then I think just in general, supporting each other in these not just really stressful times of being in a program, but really the job and internship hunt and all that it means to be prepping for a career right now. So I think next we're moving to funding,
Funding.
right? And I think I've seen a few questions in the chat just about like how do people get through? Yes.
Yeah. So just to give a little background for those of you who don't know kind of how funding can work in a graduate program, and that is that some of our students, and it's usually around 50% or so, maybe a little bit more, are able to find funding as a graduate research assistant or a graduate teaching assistant. Graduate research assistant means you are working likely in a lab on campus under the supervision of a professor or a PhD student in that lab. The work you're being funded, so your tuition is paid for, and you're being paid a monthly salary to do work in that lab. Okay, so it's actually not a bad deal. You get tuition covered and you get stuff to cover your life expenses. Teaching assistant is similar. It's but instead of working in a lab, you are grading papers. You may be giving lectures now and then. You may be having um, uh, office hours with students to explain material. It really depends on the course, but more of our students get GTAs than get GRAs, I would say. There's certain courses, undergraduate courses at Tech, that have hired more than a few of our students. There's an undergraduate HCI class, for example, that has hired our students as teaching assistants. There's an undergraduate ethics course that has also hired our students as teaching assistants. Um, Question always comes up was, how do I get one of these? Well, there isn't like one path to doing that. If you do join the program, you'll find that we have a really active Slack channel, or Slack program. And we have a channel in Slack called Jobs and Internships. And if anyone becomes aware of one of these opportunities that's opened up, we'll post it there. And so you can learn about stuff that way. Um, Students ask about timing. A lot of these GRAs and GTAs, you are not lined up until right before school starts in the fall. So that means you kind of have to take a leap of faith when you're deciding to join the program in the spring, because you will not know that you have GRA or GTA funding before you have to decide whether or not you're going to be enrolling. It also isn't all or nothing thing. Some students or many of our students do not get funding in their first semester, but they can use that semester to get to know faculty, to get to know kind of what else is going on campus, to understand how to explore opportunities for funding. And so we see a jump up then in the spring semester for the students who may not have funding in the fall, but they're able to get it in the spring. Um, yeah, some of we're going to talk a little bit more about working part-time. And let me just turn that over to Carrie now. Do you want to say a few words about students who work part-time while um, outside of not working on campus without having a GRA or a GTA?
Yeah, so I think this is also linked to a good question about like, can you do this program part-time? And the answer to that question is not really, especially the first semester. This program is designed for you to jump into it, be immersed in it, and be able to take advantage of all the opportunities and the social networking here that the program provides. So in addition, right? So finances are different for everyone. And I know this is a particularly challenging time to look at spending money on education and balancing all the other financial obligations that you might have. So there's a temptation often to figure out how to supplement your income in some way while you're in the program. And again, I would say the first semester, it's just so hard to do anything other than be in the classes, get into and orient yourself to Atlanta, Georgia Tech, the HCI program, grad school. Beyond that, I think there are ways that students will find time to do outside work if they need it. I would say it's not common. You're definitely trading off taking up time with part-time opportunities for income with the extra time you might have to be looking for jobs, getting engaged in labs, looking for other partnerships, exploring new passions, whatever that might be, in addition to making sure you have time for yourself. And so it's not recommended to do a bunch of part-time work while you're in the program. However, I do know that some students have found success balancing that with the need to have some money coming in. Okay, so I think I'm up next with some rapid fire questions. This first one goes to Emily. And Emily, I know you've been a content creator for a center on campus, and wellness is a part of that center. So I want to know what your favorite wellness activity is.
I would say my favorite wellness activity is just hanging out with friends. I think that it's really fun to just get together and do like a fun, chill activity together. Like I know last night we got together and made soup because it's been so cold in Atlanta these past few days. And so I think in those kind of chill moments, I'm like, wow, this feels really nice.
All right, all right. I wish I'd had some soup right now.
It's super cold in Atlanta today.
Super cold.
Super cold.
It is. So, Dr. Henneman, you've been here in Atlanta for many years, and you even talked about parks and beautiful places on campus. And I want to know, with all of the range of what Atlanta has to offer for spaces, what's your favorite time of year on campus?
On campus. So I'm torn because a favorite time of year is when the this fall semester starts, when our new students come in. I mean, I think it's just a really exciting time to meet everyone, and everyone is just enthused about being on campus and kind of exploring the space, and it's a fun time to be here. Um, but I'll also say, like in the springtime, for those of you who haven't been to Atlanta in the springtime, it's a really beautiful place. I mean, there's like azaleas blooming and dogwoods, and it's just a really nice place to be. So that's great. And then feeding into graduation, it's always a little bit bittersweet for for us to say goodbye to our second year students. But we try to make our graduation experience memorable, and it's certainly difficult to say goodbye to our students. But it's also a really happy time to send them off into careers in HCI and UX.
Totally agree with all of those. Thanks. All right, so this next question goes to Drew. Drew mentioned at the start of this that he was not from this area. So I'm going to ask him to name something in Atlanta that reminds him of home.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm from Pennsylvania, and I actually grew up really close to the Mason-Dixon line, so where Maryland and Pennsylvania meet. And so there's this really long trail that used to be the railroad tracks for trains passing through. And the belt line here in Atlanta stretches for a very long time, and actually connects to another trail called the Silver Comet Trail, which extends all the way out to Alabama. So that's probably the place that reminds me most of home, just because when you're on it, you just see a trail for a really long time. It's a great place to take a walk and clear your head, or they have a series of 5 and 10Ks throughout the year. There's one in each season. So it's just a great place to connect with being outside for a little bit.
Okay, Drew, let's continue with you. I want to shift gears a little bit. Oh, and first of all, I want to just make note, we're not, thanks for all the questions that are coming in, and we're trying to answer those somewhat as they come in, but we'll go back and at the end of all this, we'll make sure that we've addressed them. So keep them coming. But Drew, I wanted you to share a little bit more about this community we're trying to focus on in the program. Um, we hear a lot from current students that that's important. Could you talk a little bit about what goes on to foster that sense of community and what kind of collaboration and peer support should our students, incoming students, expect to get from the cohort and from others already in the program?
Yeah, definitely. The community, both in the cohort that you join with, as well as just the MS-HCI program as a whole, is really strong. Just to give a little example of that, um, we get on campus the week before classes start, and then there are a lot of university provided opportunities to mix with other grad students. And so, in some of those social settings, other students were hearing about our program and all of the things that we do as a group together, and shared the sentiment of like, wow, I didn't realize grad students could be so close. Our cohorts don't work like that. So just to give you an example of, there's a lot of structure around how we get to know one another and connect. Some of it's digital, right? We fill out a Miro board with an ID card where we share a little bit about us. So first and second years all share that Miro board, and it's just a great way to get to know people before you might see them on campus. But then we do things like a high ropes activity. The first few weeks of class, where you're really testing your team building skills. But then there's also the physical space, right? So I'm sitting in the lounge right now, and a lot of people tend to sit in the lounge throughout the week doing work and trying to either work on their projects or apply to career opportunities. So there's a lot of natural interaction too. You just pop in the lounge and someone's hanging out there, they might ask you for help or to review a project. Some weeks, people are trying to debug code, and so they might be sitting there. Or other times, it's recently we watched K-pop Demon Hunters in the lounge too, right? So there are movie nights and things like that. So um, physical space, digital space, and then a lot of structure to help support that. And I think the other thing is. Um, if you are really interested in the program, odds are there's something that you are trying to solve. And most of the times you need help with that, right? So there's just this inclination to seek out and connect with others, which I think really shines in this program.
And Drew, you're going to be doing a tour in a few minutes, right?
Yes, yeah, I'll be going mobile here in a little bit.
Okay. So I am going to ask Emily a question just to follow up. We've had a few questions in the chat about cohort size, diversity, et cetera. So I want Emily to talk a little bit about the diversity of backgrounds that students bring to the program, those perspectives coming from CS students and designers and psychologists, and how that actually enriches the learning and social experience.
For sure. I mean, with by the nature of the tracks, I feel like there's like those main kind of hemispheres of disciplines that people are coming from. And it's really cool to just see how other people kind of approach problem solving. Like, I think coming from a design background, I was pretty familiar with like the double diamond method. And at a certain point, I think it kind of becomes a little bit like second nature. And you're kind of like, okay, like I know like when I get something like this is like the process that I go through. But some people coming from, a more or like less design-esque background might be like approaching things from like a more like scientific method kind of way. And even though there's definitely overlaps between these like methods of approaching problems, there is kind of like differences, and it's cool to like work together to negotiate different ways of like how we can approach these problems in different ways, whether or not there's opportunities to kind of bring together these different methods of problem solving to come to a more defined and well thought out space. Um, and also outside of just working on projects and stuff, it's just super cool to talk to people and just learn from their experiences. Like a lot of people are coming from like a professional background, like Drew, for example, is coming from a marketing background. I've done some marketing work and I'm like, oh, like that's so cool. And um, also, one of my teammates has a background in sociology, and I've been taking a lot of social science classes. So sometimes we'll just be in our team meetings and I'll be like, oh, like I have XYZ reading that I have to do later. And we'll just like kind of talk about that. And it's just really cool to see how everyone's coming in with just like so much information, and you just like learn so much, even just in the kind of fleeting casual moments as well.
Thanks, Emily. Actually, could both you and Drew talk a little bit about other opportunities for how students get involved with the program? There's always a lot going on. Why don't we start with Drew?
Yeah, so I'll give some background. This semester, I actually started the process of creating a GRA with a different office. So with the Georgia Tech Alumni Association. And so, you know, a personal interest is one way that you can explore getting deeply connected with both the program and the resources on campus. For example, with that GRA, it's with the Electronic Learning Communities Lab, which is hosted by Dr. Bruckman. And so um, she also teaches a course in the fall semester, the design of online communities. So a lot of that was really what my GRA interest was in. So connecting her with the right people at the Alumni Association, which is building off of the foundations that we work on in our first semester. Um, the campus itself is really close to Midtown, so there are a lot of opportunities to just explore, things that you like to do. The Slack was mentioned, and that's a big part of our community building is just finding your own way of navigating Slack. I would say that's an informal requirement of being successful in the program is having a way of monitoring Slack and all of the information that you're going to get in that area. But there are sub channels for things like doing yoga every Sunday, or there is both a UX design and UX research group that meets every couple of weeks or once a week and practices different skills. So finding, things that you're already interested in and finding other students that are interested in it. And then just making plans to make those things happen. What do you think, Emily?
Yeah, for sure. I think that on the topic of just like the different Slack channels, um, something that we have going on is like all of our different groups, like our HCI subgroups. So we have our social media teams. That's a way to kind of give back to the program. Um, Shameless social media plug if y'all want to keep up with what we've been doing in the program. Some awesome articles. I know our Medium team and also our podcast team, that's been awesome. They've been absolutely killing it this semester. There's some really great content about, it's current students. So you get to kind of get a perspective on how things are via the podcast. And I know on our Medium recently, we've been featuring some of our alumni. I think the recent feature was Stephanie, who was actually my first semester Verizon Connect point of contact. So it was awesome to see her getting featured there. There's also the grad council, which is basically like a team of your peers who are kind of there to help be eyes on the ground, basically a resource to support y'all in if there's any student concerns, just keeping an ear out for things. We meet with Dr. Henneman once a week, so we'll kind of talk about things going on within the program, any student feedback, as well as planning and helping to coordinate some of our events like Halloween. We have Happy Thanksgiving coming up, which is going to be super awesome. So a lot of different ways to get involved, and I think that's like definitely the strength of our program. I feel like everything is very intentionally thought out to really think about how we can just like really strengthen the community and support one another in the best ways that we can.
All right, Drew, I think it's your time to take us on a tour.
Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. So I just stepped into the HCI lounge, and here we've got some students. What are y'all working on?
Prototype.
Our design class probably
Okay, so some prototyping in Figma. There's Mark. So this space is open for all of us. It's anyone in the program. You can see there are whiteboards, there are lockers, there are a few screens that you can share things on. There's Madison. So there are a ton of resources here in the lounge. It's just a great place to connect with members in the cohort, and then if you're working on something, but you can see, I mean, there's just a lot of space. We'll hop back into where I was sitting. There's an interview booth. There's Dr. Bruce. And so you can see the directors are here. I think Dr. Henneman's going to say hello.
Hi.
Perfect. So there's this interview booth here. And sorry, there's a delay in my headphones, so it's hard to talk. But we'll also hop over here so you can see one of the labs. So there's a lot of space for doing affinity mapping. And then we're just going to show. So there are a ton of labs happening. It's pretty quiet today. And another interview booth. So that's just a little bit of some of the space that's dedicated to you here on the program. All right, I'm heading back to the station.
Thanks.
So Drew
So-
showed some of the
Go ahead.
spaces that are directly in this area, but in reality, our students are often spending time in other parts of campus, on other floors of this building, and much of our students are able to go to lots of different places on campus to do the work. But we do have these very dedicated spaces too. Okay, so I have some follow-up questions to Emily and Drew. Just thinking about the students' perspective, we often give these kinds of sessions and we talk a lot about the curriculum and the hard stuff. And I know Emily and Drew, you've already mentioned some of the things from the student side of things, but I want to say, let's be real here and honest in terms of what the most challenging aspects of the program are for students. And what that really means is, what do you struggle with as you go through the program, and where do you find support when you're having those struggles?
Can go first. I think being realistic, group projects are difficult in any setting, whether that's in a full-time role or, if you've just done group projects in undergrad. Like, let's be real, it can be difficult. It's work that you don't get paid to do, and so the motivations for people vary, and especially in a program like this where um you are busy with two projects at least, and then also busy with trying to figure out what kind of internship you might like. There's just a lot to balance there, so group projects are a labor of love, and I think that's true in any setting, but particularly in here where your cohort really is an important part of your experience. Um, Being intentional and careful with those relationships is definitely a challenge, but I mean that in a good way. I don't mean that to say like they are they are difficult. They're just work, right? They are an additional relationship that you have to manage. Um, so I think that would be something that I say is definitely a challenge. I'll pause and let Emily share some challenges that she might have.
Yeah, for sure. I think +1 to the difficulty of team project stuff. And I think one thing that I've been kind of trying to be better about and stuff is that, it's really easy, and I think MS-HCI students are maybe falling in the same boat where you're like, oh man, like, I feel really capable. I don't want to like, I think I can figure this out on my own. Like if I just like work hard enough and like I just kind of like am deep in the struggle, like I'll eventually get out. But also learning how to ask for help, and also when like, some things like you need additional support, and also there are so many resources out there for you to use for this purpose. So also knowing when to, reach out to Dr. Henneman or Dr. Bruce and just like pull in external support from the people who are there to support you and help you and guide you, since this is like a learning experience. Like not everyone's coming out the gates knowing perfectly how to conflict resolve, and there's also your TAs who are there to support you all, and just like learning that, just because you're asking for help doesn't mean that it's like a bad reflection on you. It doesn't mean that like you absolutely are like completely like excommunicating, not on speaking terms with anyone. It's basically just, getting a kind of nudge in the right direction and having someone just kind of be there to help you on this learning process of like navigating these kind of sticky situations, and thinking about how that's going to also help you and prepare you for the real work life, because group projects will um, unfortunately have kind of an end point, but in the real work life, that might be kind of an indefinite period where you're going to have to learn how to continuously manage and navigate these types of things. So I like to frame it kind of in this um, iterative design processy, kind of design field brain kind of way, where it's a kind of iterative process where you're building on this. To not steal Drew's answer a little bit, I think one thing that can be kind of tough is that kind of limbo period sometimes with the GTA, GRA stuff. I know the timelines. We had a couple questions come in and people were like, oh, what does the timeline look like? And it really can vary, which can be really stressful because that's kind of like a source of funding. Since I think it really depends on the professor when they find out about their department allocations sometimes can really vary. So maybe they're waiting on other people to get back to them with a response. Maybe they're just really booked up with their own research and work things, and maybe they just kind of put off looking for TAs. I would say most people are able to find them. And I remember like a few semesters ago, I got mine super last minute, basically like the last week of school almost. So it really depends. And this semester, I'm finding out much earlier. So there can really be things bouncing around. But again, Dr. Bruce and Dr. Henneman, they'll kind of hear from professors and labs that have opportunities and they'll drop them in our big Slack channel. So that's a great place to look. And also your peers are a great resource, like people who are teaching for other classes and like, hey, like, my professor, I think I heard them mention that they're looking for a couple other people, or second years will recommend other people to positions. So I think definitely leaning on your network. I think a huge core learning for me has been, um, learning to lean on your network that's there to support you and really, I feel like you're like, oh, like I would like if someone asked me for help, absolutely. So why wouldn't that be the same if I were to do the same? So
All right, let's stick with you, Emily. Let's do the flip side. Like, what has been a particularly rewarding moment or like breakthrough experience?
hmm I think one thing that and conveniently, I guess I just came off the tails of talking about GTAing and RA positions. But I think one thing that I found really rewarding that I was kind of a little bit surprised by was how much I've enjoyed being a TA. I think originally I kind of just like approached it as um, I think this would be a cool experience. And also the financial benefits of this is really awesome. But I think one thing that I found so rewarding is since I took the class that I'm TAing for as a part of my undergrad computer science minor, being back has really felt like a full circle moment, and I really enjoy the experience of being able to like connect with my students and also take on this more mentor-esque role. Like every time I see my students like improving in their submissions. It really just like makes me so happy. And I remember like one time, like last semester, I believe, um, like I had this one team where their first few submissions were like maybe a little bit rough. And then I think one of their submissions, which was like amazing. I think they got like a super high score, like basically 100 or something. And I was like, oh my goodness, like I felt like so like my heart was like swelling with joy seeing like their kind of narrative arc to like improvement. And I was like, wow, like this is really awesome. And I love just like talking with them and, being trying to imbue some sort of support. And I remember one time in lecture, I was like bringing in some stuff that I was learning from my social justice and design class. I was like, oh, this is something that I've been learning as we go along too. And I've found this super interesting. And that student actually approached me after class and was like, oh, like, could you remind me what that book you were talking about was? Like, I feel super interested. And I was like, wow, like, I didn't even know you guys were listening to what I was saying. So yeah, that's been really rewarding. Drew, I'm hot potatoing over to you. What's been the most rewarding experience?
Yeah, I mean, I can't believe I waited this long to talk about it, but the brown bag lunch series. So there is you can choose to have it count as course credit, but on Thursdays, from 12:30 to 1:30, there is a course where you are provided lunch and you get to hear someone share a part of their research or something that they're working on. And that has just been so cool. There are so many different disciplines. We've heard from a group that was testing air quality and put sensors up in different communities to understand, kind of the impact of different like external factors on the air quality in those communities. We've heard from a group on um, the uh, just way to navigate research in a community, right? Like, how do you do that responsibly, and making sure that you're being a good community partner. And I think building on top of that, one of the most rewarding things has just been the research and the support that Georgia Tech as an institution offers. There is just a lot of innovative energy, and you know, there are a lot of problems being solved. There are a lot of examples of problems being solved just in the way that um, buildings might be structured. And I think we have some photos later on that we're going to showcase, some areas of campus that really represent that. But um, I mean, a class where you get free lunch and get to hear really uh, interesting talks, I don't know that it gets better than that.
All right, time for rapid fire questions. Emily, what was your internship last summer? And was it a good experience?
Yes. So I interned at a local design consultancy called Design. They do service design consulting specifically. And it was a really great experience. I really loved my team. I was actually the only intern there this past summer. They kind of flip-flop between 2 to 3, but I think with how things worked out with the projects, I believe they only hired one intern. And at first I was like a little bit nervous coming in as the only intern, but they assigned me an intern buddy, which was someone who was working there full time, and we vibed amazingly. Becky, shout out to Becky. She also used to work at the zoo, so one time we did buddy lunch at the zoo, and we like watched
Hmm.
the gorillas while we were eating sandwiches, so that was super fun.
All right, thanks, Carrie. How many company-sponsored projects, including courses and master's projects, did we have last year?
So many. So almost 40, which really means 39. And so that would include the core course, research methods, capstones, and an HCI applications course that we occasionally teach where it's project based. So 39. This year we have a few less, so like 30, 36-ish, because we're not doing the applications course, but it's a lot and it represents community partners all the way up to major big tech companies like Microsoft. So all across the board, different kinds of companies and their project spaces are represented.
Okay. And Drew, I know you're a marathon runner. What are the good places to run in Atlanta?
Yeah, another picture that I have on our slideshow later is there is a Pi Mile trail around campus, which even though it's called the Pi Mile, it is 3.14. And so that goes through different parts of campus, but that's a great place to run. And then there are a few great running clubs. Just in the area, so there's a lot of ways to get involved. I live in West Midtown, so I tend to run on the Beltline and Silver Comet Trail that connects over on that end. But there are a lot of great places to run, and the Beltline that connects to Ponce City Market is definitely a really popular area. It's a great place to go out, especially on the weekend. There's just a lot happening because it also connects to Piedmont Park. So um, yeah, I mean, you can run in so many places. So if that's something that's important to you, um, there's definitely opportunity here.
All right, so we are getting near on time. So I want to hit on application because this is something I think so many of you are um, wanting to get more details about, and I've answered some of those questions in the chat. But let me ask Dr. Henneman, do prospective students need UX experience or some kind of relevant working experience to apply?
So the short answer is no. We're trying to teach people about UX. We're not expecting you to be experts at UX and HCI when you come into the program. With that said, some of our applicants and students we admit do have that experience. So we're always trying to get diversity in our program, diversity of backgrounds and interests. And so it's, you know, as Drew illustrates, he's coming in with a background more in marketing related things and kind of traditional UX. Emily came into the program with an undergraduate degree in industrial design without really a real focus on UX and HCI. And I think if you spoke with any of our current students, you'll see they're coming from a whole lot of different backgrounds. And so it isn't necessary to come into apply to the program with a lot of UX experience and stuff under your belt. But what we are looking for is a passion for the area, you know, that you can reveal through your statement of purpose, through your video submission with your application. So there's ways that you can reveal that to us, which is something we are looking for. You know, we want students who are excited about the idea of careers in HCI and UX. So, you know, we're looking for a lot of different kinds of backgrounds. The idea of being kind of a program that embraces that, just the fact that we are this multidisciplinary program means we're looking for a variety of different backgrounds. I posted in the chat a Medium article I wrote that answers a lot of questions about the admissions process. And then I'm also posting a link to a video that some of the faculty, associate directors, and Carrie and me participated in that kind of gives some perspectives on the admissions process. Um, Question that has come up in the chat and that always comes up often is how prospective students should think about choosing a track. And I'm just going to open this up to the other, to the three of you if you want to weigh in on this at all.
Yeah, I would just reiterate the points I was making earlier about often the big match or the big connection is between your background and what's required for applying to that track, but also as you get into the curriculum, having a foundation of classes that builds upon that background knowledge that you have.
Yeah, and I think that if Emily and Drew, if you want to say anything about this, I think we've kind of hit on this a couple times, but if you have anything, please share.
Yeah, I can just share. So I actually applied to the program twice. I was not admitted the first time. And in my first application process, I applied to just the LMC track. And second time around, I applied to LMC and IC and submitted, different materials for both. But I think in that, what I learned in that in between year was really helpful in defining what I saw myself bringing to either of those tracks. And so I share that to say that you can apply to more than one track. And so your background is your strength, right? But it really is about in these next few months thinking critically about what you're looking to explore with that background and how that makes you both a strong applicant, but then what does it mean to you? I think, especially when you're considering grad school, um, there's a lot to remember, and sometimes you lose yourself in that process. So just being mindful of what it is you're bringing to a track is a super important part of the process.
Okay. Emily, I don't know if you have anything to add. Otherwise, we can to choosing a track. I think in your case, it was pretty straightforward what track to apply to given your ID background.
Yeah, for sure. And I think Drew did a really good job, especially with the comparing of like the second time around. So +1 to that.
Okay, let's talk more about specific parts of the application. Um, the statement of purpose is something that everyone is asked to submit, and really what we're looking for there is, you know, what makes you unique and why is your uniqueness appropriate for the MS-HCI program? If I can give any advice, try to avoid being generic, make it personal, make sure it's about you and your interests and your experiences. Carrie, could you maybe say a little bit about the portfolio and the video requirements?
Yeah, so we have a portfolio requirement for two of our tracks, the literature media communication, which is also the digital media, and then the industrial design. So required definitely for those two tracks. Also highly encouraged for the interactive computing track, just as a additional way to show the work that you have, your passion in some way. Overall, I would say the portfolio should showcase your processes. So how you proceed through the work, even if it's not successful, those are important stories to tell. So it's not just to focus on your final artifacts in any way. And then I would say other things that we often look for are seeing personal sides of you in your portfolio. So some students will have like art or travel passions that they somehow showcase on that portfolio. So portfolios for some tracks. One additional requirement that we started last year for all of our applicants is the video submission. And so we did this last year because we were looking for another way to get to know students a little bit better and kind of go beyond the words that are in the traditional application. So this gives you a creative way to represent yourself. And you should take that beyond your statement of purpose. Don't just reiterate what you've already said otherwise. And it should be between 1 and 2 minutes. You have to be on camera and speaking with your own voice the entire time. So do not go into the AI space and think you're going to be so creative by creating an AI video of yourself with some weird voice. That is not what we are looking for. So use this video submission to your advantage. We do look at them. Most applicants are going to kind of prep this and push it out on YouTube and then give us a link, although there are ways that you can kind of embed this into the actual application. Okay, so I have a question about students who are very curious and have now seen some of the physical tour of the space and might want to make a visit to campus or sit in on classes, etc. How could they go about doing that?
Yeah, so I am sharing in our chat right now our contact email address. And you can also, if you don't get it from this, you can find it on our website. Um, if you would like to visit campus, send a note there and we can, arrange for you to chat with some current students, depending on when you're here, maybe sit in on an elective class in the spring. Um, we don't have a formal day where we're inviting students to come to campus to explore campus. We're doing that online, but you're still welcome to come and we would love chatting with you. If depending on the time, Carrie and I will be happy to spend a few moments with you and talk about the program and answer your questions. So um, I also invite you to explore thoroughly the various resources that we make available through our social media channels and on our website. Drew, I think there's also maybe a new video or two coming along that will talk more about the program that we can look forward to.
Yes, yep, we are rolling out our new YouTube series. And so the first video will drop this week. So definitely head to YouTube and um, subscribe there. But like Emily mentioned, there's a lot of great resources across all of the social channels. So definitely plug in to a few because they're offering different perspectives on both the program and then help with your application.
All right, so I think we are getting close to wrapping up the plan part of this. Um, I think the key thing right now is what the timeline is for applications and decisions that I mentioned at the beginning. Our applications are due, and I should have looked this up. It's like whatever the Monday is after February 1st, February
Second.
2nd. Okay. And it's at 11:59 p.m. I encourage you not to wait to the last minute because this hasn't happened well, I've been at Georgia Tech, but I've heard it's happened in the past where something crashes and you have problems connecting, or the system at Georgia Tech has problems. So don't wait to the last minute. Try to, time your work to get your application a little bit sooner. We try to turn those around, hopefully by the end of February or beginning of March. And we'll have our online admitted student event the end of March. And application decisions then are due, enrollment decisions then are due April 15th. So with that, I think I'm going to turn this over to Emily, who has another one of our mini tours planned of our craft lab.
In my mobile state, I'm gonna shimmy on over. So here, let me flip my camera around. This is super awesome. This is like a project that was created by Dr. Ziegler and some other folks. Super cool. This is actually the back entrance for the craft lab, and I'll swing on over to the front side
So right
before
now,
then.
Emily's on second floor of
Yes,
Technology Square Research Building. So MS-HCI Lounge and Studios on third floor. Emily's a floor below us.
correct. So for this lab in particular, you will need to have a buzz card. You'll need to do the training for the craft lab for buzz card access. So here we go, entering into the craft lab. A friend has been spotted. So this is the craft lab. So a lot of really cool equipment and stuff that is available for use. It's once you get the training, like you don't need to pay money or anything. We have 3D printers. You do have to bring your own filament, but the machines are first come, first serve. Oh, I think this machine might be new or they just put it out. I think it's just like holding this specific type of filament. We have bamboo machines, super awesome. If y'all are 3D printing buffs or maybe also coming from an ID background, y'all will know that the bamboo machines are really, really nice. We also have an Ultimaker down there. Here's the embroidery machine, super cool. You can program designs and work on your stuff. One thing to note too is that the craft lab, you don't necessarily have to be working on something for a class. If you are like a hobbyist and you just want to pick up some of these things for fun on your own, that is available to you. We have this really cool knitting machine. I haven't learned how to use this yet, but people are able to create really cool knit things. Like they have some samples here, like this was created on the Knitterate machine. So really awesome stuff. And again, kind of echoing what we've been talking about earlier, the variety of resources we have available to us. Definitely take advantage of them. They're here and open for you to use. We have Cricuts. I know some people are on the Cricut grind. We have some vinyl, I believe, somewhere for people to use, a printer, a bunch of sewing machines. I'm taking the soft goods elective this semester. It's an ID elective. And so we're in here a bunch using the sewing machines and the sergers. They also have industrial sewing machines. If anyone's into making their own clothes, you can also just come in here. I know a bunch of HCI people who are very crafty, and they'll come in and alter their clothes, add embellishments via the machines. So yeah, really awesome workspace. We have an iron. Maybe you have an interview tomorrow and you need an iron. We have that there too. And then there's also this other side of the craft lab that you do need more advanced training for. But I'll go out the other way so that y'all can get a whole view of everything. Safety stuff, very important. And yeah, so that's the main hall with the elevators. And then I will go on back to my corner.
I have a couple of pictures first to showcase the projects that I mentioned a few times throughout the session. There's a picture on the left side. The Georgia Aquarium has been a favorite place for some of our students to do work. There's a picture that says Fable Tales, and this is a highlight from one of our capstones last year where the team worked with Discovery Education to build a tool for students in the middle school timeframe to work through basics of literacy and kind of learning how to write and read. And they've now graduated and moved that into a small business that they're trying to get started up. The bottom picture is a highlight also of a website that a couple of our students worked on in our HCI applications class in coordination with the Task Force for Global Health around hepatitis B and making sure people have resources and support around that across the globe. And so our students had a huge part in redesigning this website so that people had access to it. The next set of pictures are some of our community events that we've had this year. There's a picture for a camping trip that our students kind of pull together on their own, coordinate, and then carry out in the fall typically. The middle picture is a meal that our students put together, a potluck meal around Chiosuk. Is that right? And then the final picture is a Diwali celebration that some of our students also got together and kind of planned and carried out at their apartment nearby. The next set of pictures, I think, are good representations of the kinds of activities we do in class. And I think that's something I didn't necessarily touch upon very well, but there's a lot of active learning that happens in our core classes. And so these three pictures, one of them shows affinity mapping. And so there's lots of stickies on the wall, and that's a very physical part to the first few weeks of classes and research methods where students learn how to do interviews and then take those notes and move them around and make sense of their findings, so to speak. There's another picture of a recent field trip we did to the Center for Inclusive Design and Innovation here on campus that focuses on accessibility. And they have a braille and tactile media production facility. So the images that these students are looking at are actually tactile images. So all of them have a variety of color and tactile components. And then the last picture there is just students who are working in one of our class periods on an activity related to the content that day. Okay, Dr. Henneman, this next photo is of your class, two different activities that we mentioned already.
Yeah, so the picture on the left is from when we invite Dad's Garage improv theater to come in, and they lead hands-on kind of activity to give our students experience and guidance in public speaking. And it is they're hilarious. It's a lot of fun, and our students report, this is a great way to kind of learn how to become more comfortable in talking with other people about yourself and what you do. I had mentioned earlier, then we also have a mock interview session, and the picture at the bottom is from when we did this in person. We've been doing it online lately, but here we have a rather large number of alums and industry professionals around who come in and are paired to meet one-on-one with current students to really support them however the student can best use their support. So in some cases, it's doing a mock interview. In other cases, it's giving feedback on a portfolio. In some cases, it's just talking about career opportunities. And we've been really lucky to have such a large outpouring of support from the community to work with our students. So we move on.
All right, maybe Drew put these in?
Yes, this is me. So just a few examples, and I won't go over all of them, but I just kind of wanted to showcase some of the different student life opportunities. And so there's another example of our affinity mapping. leading up to Halloween, there were carved pumpkins all over campus. And then, class looks different really week to week, which I think is a big draw of the program. So all of these photos on the outside or the perimeter of the slide are different class periods, which I just think is a really cool example of just how diverse our curriculum can be. So that's all I'll cover on this slide.
All right, next slide.
Yes, and again, just kind of wanted to showcase some of the beauty around campus. So, obviously, Tech Tower, the history of the campus, and is just really neat, especially when you consider that we are in Midtown Atlanta. It's just really fun. Um, if anyone is from Seattle or has visited Seattle, you might recognize those glass sculptures that are hanging in that photo. They are from the Cthulhu Glass Garden. So that is just a really cool example of some art that's on campus. And then I think the last one I'll highlight is, if you didn't know, Atlanta was host to the 1996 Olympics. And so there are some really impressive facilities, one of which is the Georgia Tech Rec Center's aquatic area, which there are those pools that you see in there, but then there's also an outdoor pool that has a water slide. So there is a lot of fun places to engage with on campus.
Okay, and with that, I think we have wrapped up the content we've prepared for you today. Um, I want to thank our panelists, Drew, Emily, and Carrie, for helping out with us today.
No, thanks, y'all. Thanks for tuning in and look forward to answering any questions.
Thanks, everyone.